Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome to 6 Feet Unfiltered. I'm Courtney.
I'm Chloe. Okay, before we start, I don't know if I'm gonna want to include this, but I have to put this in. I intentionally wanted to do this while we were recording. I have to tell you a story
Oh boy.
that is so fucked up. And
Okay.
trigger warning for anyone who might be listening. I know you usually come here if you are listening to this for 6 feet under content. This is not 6 feet under content. It does involve talk about death and dying, but trigger warning for domestic abuse
And infant lost for the
for the episode.
episode. I
Yeah.
forgot I was going to put that in there too.
Yes. But this is like a crazy true crime story detour that I just want to tell you about.
Okay. Who are we
That
burying?
has sent me on a journey over the last couple of days. Okay. So I moved into my house. I also have to be careful about what I say because I don't want to give too much information away. But I moved into my house about 3 years ago.
Is this about the books?
Books?
Photo albums
What photo album?
at your house? Isn't your house haunted?
I think my house is haunted, but no, it's not about
Okay.
that. What photo album?
I thought there was photo albums of old people.
No, I did research on my house and found photos.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's photos in my brain.
But I actually just recently found more photos of the people who lived in my house in 1912. Crazy. But oh no, not about that. But when I first moved in my house, I live in an area that obviously the houses are very old, early 1900s. And there was an empty plot of land across the street from me, a couple like directly
Before you moved in?
Yes, and when I moved in. So directly across the street from me, the house right next door to the house that's right across the street from me. And right when I moved in, they started laying foundation for a new house, and then now there's a new build on that plot. And I never knew. I always kind of wondered why there was an empty plot of land there. I never gave it much thought, but I have gone down very deep rabbit holes, like we were just talking about, on research about my house and my home's history, because it's my first house. I bought my house, so I've just been very like, I just like stuff like that. And I took a community ed class with a couple of my friends to learn about how to better research your house. Anyway, so
It's like for in the future before you buy?
no, like
Just
the
in
history
general.
of your home.
Oh my God, love that. Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. So that's how I found a lot of, well, to be honest, before I went to that class, I already found out a lot of stuff, but I did find more. Anyway, so I've been looking through our like Hennepin County, what do they call it? Like historical collections that they have online that you can search through of photos and stuff. There's a ton of interesting things if you live in a city that I'm sure most cities probably, if our county is digitizing that stuff, I'm sure a lot are. But there, every so often, there will be like, I feel like they're actively in the process of digitizing a lot of their records. So every time I go back, there will be something new, like new photo, new records, whatever. Not every time, but sometimes. So I'll go back every so often, every couple of months to look. And so I don't even know how I ended up stumbling upon this, but I will search my address and the street that it's on, and that's how I end up finding a lot of this stuff. So I ended up finding an old photo of the house that used to be on that plot across the street. And it was this super cute little like green duplex built in 1907. Anyway, I was like, that got me interested in finding out what happened to it. So I Googled that address.
Oh boy.
And I found, gosh, I don't even know what you call these records. I have it all on my phone, but basically county records like documenting orders to bulldoze the home or whatever, demolish it. And yeah, like
permits and
stuff like that, and just documentation. I found this PDF of photos from inside the house, and it had clearly had a fire. So I'm looking, and I'm like, what the hell? What happened to this house? So I Googled the address, or I had already Googled the address, but then I Googled, I'm not going to say exactly what I Googled, but information to get me more information about what happened. So a fire in the area that I live in. And I had the year that it happened from that document. So I put the year in. And when I did that, holy fucking shit, I was not ready for what I found. Ton of news articles come up that show or were reporting on a domestic violent situation where a man lit his girlfriend on fire and she died in the
fire.
front fucking yard. They're on the records that I was reading, like the police report for it. The downstairs neighbor reported.
Oh, because it's a duplex.
Yep. So what happened earlier at like 2:45 a.m., the downstairs neighbor heard her screaming for help, and he yelled up to her. He said it wasn't the first time. He yelled up to her and asked if she was okay, and she was screaming, "No, help me, he's going to kill me." So he called the cops, and they came, but by the time the cops got there, the guy was gone, and they couldn't find him.
And she was on fire?
No, that was before. And then they went away, whatever. So that was at 2:45 a.m. Then at 6:45 a.m., the same neighbor heard like screaming again and a crash, and he looked outside and saw her in flames from head to toe fall down the duplex stairs into the front yard, and he put a blanket over her and put the fire out. And then another neighbor came, and this was literally all, I'm finding this out as I'm laying in bed in the morning. And this is the house that from my office that I sit in at home, it is quite literally the only thing in my line of vision all day, every day out my window from where my desk is. And well, the new house, not the old one, but that plot. And I'm literally laying in bed. I need to get up and start working. And I'm like looking at my phone, reading all this, watching all the interviews of the neighbors and stuff. And there was another neighbor interviewed on there talking about how she was holding her hand and praying with her while they were waiting for the paramedics to come. And
so she's alive at this point.
The woman died who was lit on fire.
But he put the blanket out on her.
She had been covered in flames from head to toe already prior to that, and fell down the stairs into the front lawn. So
okay, so she was laying down on the stairs.
She succumbed to her injuries from the fire later on that day. She was alive when the paramedics came and got her, but she was like they were saying like she was burned, her skin was burned off, like she was bleeding everywhere. Like she imagine being covered in flames from head to toe for like any amount of time, let alone enough time to make it from your upstairs duplex down the stairs into the front yard. Oh, and so holy shit, I went down and this I can't even talk right now. It has been bothering me so much. It like when I first found out, I was like just shocked, but the more like that, like I said, it was in the morning when I was finding all of this stuff, and as the day went on, I literally just got sick to my stomach and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And yeah, crazy. So there's a ton more. Did
they ever find the guy?
Yep, they found him 3 blocks away on his hands and knees, screaming in pain from his own burns. And he had to go to the hospital too and stayed in the hospital for a while, and now he's in prison. Thank God they found him. But like, he had an extensive record. I will show you later. I'm not going to say any names or anything.
The fact that the cops came at 2 a.m. and then left, and 4 hours later she's dead. Yeah. Is really fucked up.
I know. But I do think that they looked for him and he had ran away.
They should have stayed the night with her. They should have taken her into a domestic abuse.
It sounds like there's a lot going on here. It sounds like her mom in some of the news reports were saying that she was a vulnerable adult. I don't know.
Well, yeah, she's a victim of a...
I found her Facebook. I found his Facebook. I found his past domestic violence significant others Facebooks.
Oh my God. Okay, I want all this information.
There were at least, in addition to this one that he murdered, there were at least two other victims that are on record for having restraining orders against him for domestic abuse. He has over like 40 hits when you put his name into the case search thing. All just horrible things.
And this is also right across the street from where you live.
From where I live, I know. And that's why, so I have just been looking over there and
You're feeling all of the pain.
Yeah, I'm just like sick to my stomach and seeing like, I found...
So they must have bulldozed the house. The house itself wasn't on fire?
No, it was, but it was like I was reading about it. I guess there was a guy who bought it who said he had the money to fix it up, that the structure was still intact, but it was like, if you ever seen a house that had a house fire in it, it's like burned
smoke,
on the inside, and it was all boarded up and stuff, and it was a hazard essentially. So then they ended up ordering it to have it torn down. But yeah, crazy. There's so much. I found like old Facebook posts in like our community Facebook page of the articles, and people posting pictures of people bringing. There was a big memorial that they had in the front yard and there was a sign that said something like
her name,
praying for you from your neighbors, and all the neighbors brought like flowers.
So you're in a good neighborhood.
Oh, I love my neighbors. I absolutely love my neighbors in my neighborhood, and I do feel so safe there. Obviously that was a situation where it was like a domestic abuse thing, so it's not like I mean, I know that happens obviously a lot, but it's
you're not in danger by just living
right. Yeah. I don't feel that. I don't feel in danger. I just feel so sick to my stomach to know that happened. And it was, well, I shouldn't even say that. I was going to say when it happened, but it was not that long ago. It was obviously
over 3 years, but not
right
15.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so I don't even know. I can't even put to words like that feeling. I'm still processing it, I feel like. But yeah, I'll have to show you more of those details after. I found so much stuff, and it's just so completely fucked. And I'm shocked. I have one very chatty neighbor. I'm shocked he hasn't told me anything about this. Yeah, he probably didn't want to freak me out, which I appreciate. But now, and that's another thing I've been thinking about too, is like my neighbors that I know, and like the fact that they've lived there through all of this, and
why don't you bring it up? That might help with some of your closure.
Well, I haven't seen any of them since I found this out.
True.
So I could. True. But
maybe you do something like that.
I also don't want to be like, oh my God, I heard this. Like, I don't want to be, because it could be not something that they want to talk about too. But I just thinking about them experiencing that, like having to see the house on fire and her in the yard, and oh my God. And also too is just like the integrity of like the history of the neighborhood and the buildings too, and that's also just obviously nowhere near as sad as the fact that this woman lost her life, but it's just such a shame. Like, what a reckless and horrific thing to do, that just like not only murdered an innocent human, but like the ripple effects it has even on people finding out later, like me now. Like that's I can't
you put it into that perspective
wrap
too.
My mind around it. It's just so horrible. And I'm aware that things like this, I hate to even say this, but we know things like this happen every day, all the time, every day, as we talk about with this show too. But having it literally hit so close to home like that, and finding that out just randomly, just accidentally, was crazy. So
I think this is an appropriate time to also maybe have Winston drop a domestic violence number.
For sure.
Because it is so awful. Any sort of, I thankfully haven't been a victim of domestic abuse, but I have been a victim of sexual abuse in general. And it's terrible. There's a lot. She was clearly abused for many years. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are always the ones that say, why didn't you just get out? Why didn't you just leave?
It's not that simple.
It is not. It is not
easy.
Even in a split second scenario, like imagine she'd been with him, probably gaslighted for years and years, and started to just believe. She also had a
restraining order on him too from July, and this happened in September. So it was,
there's so much.
Definitely not a freak snap. It was, and he, not to mention his extensive record of domestic abuse. But yeah, for sure, we will put up a resource.
Yes.
All right, thanks for letting me offload that. I needed to tell somebody, and maybe too graphic for some, but also you're listening to a podcast.
There's some graphic shit. This episode was awful. Another caveat quickly before we even start. We were supposed to record this like a long time ago. We should have recorded it probably Sunday.
Yeah, we rescheduled several times.
And finally, Chloe's like, should we do it tonight? Do you want to wait till next week? And I was like, I honestly think I just need to get this over with because I'm having such bad anxiety about this specific episode, having an infant myself, like currently having an infant. It was just, I couldn't. And Rob ended up watching it with me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did he react?
I think it was tough too.
It's not a fun one to watch.
No. And then I just found, you'll notice through the rest of my notes throughout this episode, I'm just angry. I'm like very angry as I was watching this for so many reasons. I just remember feeling anger, and I was like, I wonder if our viewers, our all 7 viewers, are going to be like, wow, this girl's a cunt. So we'll see what happens.
You think you were angry because it was like such a scary thing?
Yes.
It was like almost like control, like a lack of control type of thing.
4 children. I am equally worried about SIDS for every single one. And I have spent 4 years trying to gaslight my own self and stop scaring my own self so I can function.
Yeah.
The first full year of their lives. And watching this happen, almost unprecedented for me because I didn't know that this was the episode. Like, I don't even remember this episode at all.
And you watched this one before me, so I didn't even have a chance to warn you.
I know. Yeah, I was just in an angry moment, and I don't know who it was at. I'm actually still in your scenario processing things. So let's dive in. Okay, so today we're going to dive into 6 Feet Under Season 1, Episode 11, almost to the end, I think.
There's 2 more in this season after this.
Okay. This one is called The Trip. This one hits hard from the start with a gut-wrenching loss, proving once again that 6 Feet Under never shies away from the most painful realities of life and death. Meanwhile, David and Nate head to Vegas for a funeral directors conference. What the fuck? David stepping up to give a big speech.
I just got back from a work conference, my first one ever. So seeing that was funny.
Did you go for a funeral directors conference?
No.
God, that sounds terrible. Please pluck my eyes out. So David's stepping up to give a big speech while Nate and Brenda turn the trip into their own chaotic getaway. But the Sin City distractions can't keep the drama at bay. Billy's unhinged behaviors also pissed me off. Escalate. David's personal struggles take a risky turn, and back at home, Rico wrestles with a heartbreaking embalming case that hits way too close to home. Plus, Ruth's floral arrangement journey takes an unexpectedly emotional turn, and Claire faces an unsettling wake-up call about Gabe. From shocking twists to surprisingly tender moments, this episode has it all. Let's get into it. I think I missed the tender moments.
Well,
that's another point.
I can think of some, but yeah, that you were just pissed.
Yep. You put on your glasses and you see what you want to see. So this is a great moment of one of my favorite things to do is self-awareness and calling things out. And I'm like, okay, now that I know, I was so angry. It's such a heavy emotion. It's hard to get past that sometimes.
For sure. So we already know that 6 Feet Under doesn't pull its punches. And this episode opens with a scene that's every parent's worst nightmare. A mother and father check on their baby, Dillon, in the middle of the night. The dad hesitates. Something about him looks different. But the mom reassures him, telling him to go back to bed. She stays, rocking gently by the crib, singing a lullaby as her baby drifts off. The scene fades out softly, almost peacefully, until the next thing we see is the cold, stark reality of Dillon's name and dates on the screen. No dramatic moment, no sudden shock, just the quiet, crushing weight of a life that ended before it even had a chance to begin. And with that, 6 Feet Under reminds us yet again, death comes for everyone, but sometimes it's unbearably unfair. Whew. It was rough.
Look at me.
Literal goosebumps.
I can't even,
So, few things about the death scene that I wanted to talk about. I was curious about the dad noticing something fell off with the baby. He made a comment like, oh, he looks different or something. So I looked into it a little bit because I was like, is that a thing? Do babies like look different before they die of SIDS? Is that like a common occurrence? I don't know. So it turns out that there's no definitive evidence that parents can sense or notice something off about their baby shortly before they pass from SIDS. But some anecdotal reports suggest that parents have felt uneasy or noticed subtle changes in their baby before a sudden death. So these observations are not always medically explainable, and because SIDS is still not fully understood, it's hard to determine whether these feelings are instinctual, coincidental, or based on subtle physiological changes. So in some cases, babies who later succumb to SIDS may have had mild symptoms of an underlying vulnerability, such as slight changes in breathing, coloring, or responsiveness, but these signs are often so subtle that they wouldn't necessarily signal an immediate concern.
Especially if you're a first-time parent.
Right. And so medical research suggests that SIDS may be linked to brainstem abnormalities affecting breathing and arousal, making it possible that there are undetectable warning signs in the hours before death. So that being said, the feeling that something is off could also be a retrospective response. Grief and shock can lead parents to search for any signs that they may have missed, even if there were none.
Because they have to blame themselves.
Right. I mean, and that's so relatable to
everything.
anything. You want to find a reason for something, especially when it's something horrible like that. But another interesting thing to point out about this death scene is that it is the only episode where the deceased's face is not shown in the opening scene. Instead, the scene is filmed from the perspective of baby Dillon. So we never, I don't think, see his face. It's
no,
just,
we don't. You see his arm and his foot.
But it's filmed from, you're in the crib as the baby, which was, I thought, an interesting thing that they did. Probably because, I mean, how do you tastefully put, a dead baby on TV?
I think that they did.
Well, yeah, I think that's why they didn't show like his face. You know what I mean? His face. They did it in a very tasteful way.
You're right. That was actually really good. I can't imagine how much more anger I would have felt if I actually saw the baby's face first.
Yeah, and the thought that went into that too. Clearly, I don't know, but yeah, it was a hard one.
And I was just crying.
Yeah. So after the death scene.
Okay, who was I talking? See, this is my first note. Who TF the fuck is this white boy?
I literally had that when I read your notes for the first time too, so I watched this episode a little differently than I normally do too. I watched like half of it yesterday and then I stopped and then went back and finished the other half today. So then when I was looking at your notes, I was trying to put them back in. I had watched the beginning of it yesterday.
Oh, so it had been a whole day.
Yeah, and I was just like,
Who
is she talking about?
Who the fuck?
Okay, let me start this one.
Okay.
So we start the episode.
That white guy.
At David's apartment. There's a guy sleeping on the couch and David's annoyed and he says, "You're still here." And then the guy is like, "What? No breakfast?" And David says, "I've got to go to work." And he says, "You were a lot nicer online." And David goes, "Yeah, well, people aren't always who they seem to be." And the guy says, "Tell me about it." And David says, "You need to leave now." And he says, "Whatever. See you in the chat rooms, Jim." Yikes, I said, but that was what your note was for. That white guy. So
I remember that now.
Then this was actually a really funny part. David kicked this guy out. He walks down the stairs because remember David lives above the garage or whatever. And this guy is tying his boot and lighting a cig. And Ruth is outside working with her plants or flowers. And she sees him come down and basically shits her pants because she's seen a dude leave David's. And remember last episode, Angela outed David. So now Ruth is seeing with her own eyes. And she's imagining David having crazy BDSM sex with a guy being whipped. And that is a weird imagination thing they show us that she has. And the guy is tying his shoes, lighting up a cig, and he sees her and he says, "Hi." And she fucking sprays him with the hose. That was funny. And then he likes "Fuck you" or "fucking bitch" or something. Yeah. And then David comes down. He didn't see that. And he says, "Good morning, Mom." And she looks at him like he just told her to fuck off or something. She was just looking at him.
It was so
how
weird.
Dare you?
And my note is, "Oh my God, Ruth, chill the fuck out."
Yeah.
I was just so pissed.
That was funny.
I mean, he did. I don't know. Yes, it was.
Yes.
I honestly, for a second, had to think back. I was like, is this part of her vision still? But she actually sprayed him.
She really sprayed him.
She put out his ciggies.
But yeah, I get why you would say that you were pissed, because that was uncalled for.
Yeah.
And he said hey to her, like, so nicely. Like, he was being so friendly. He was just like, hi. Nate and Brenda are laying in bed, and Billy calls and is leaving a message. And this was in 2001, so they can both be listening to the answering machine as he's leaving the message. And he's saying, pick up the phone. And Brenda's saying, fuck you. And he says, things are not good. I need you. And then he pauses and is like, God damn it. Fuck, bitch. And hangs up. So.
Jesus, Billy is all I wrote, because I just can't. He's so
volatile.
Yes.
And crazy. Yeah.
And it's like, how many times are you going to pull the same stunts?
Right. And Brenda's been dealing with this her whole life.
That is another thing. No, I'm like looking at Nate like, when are you going to just.
And that explains too, though, why she was pushing Nate away so much.
Because I bet you guys just leave when they see what's going on.
And we're really seeing like
Billy.
Yeah, in full form.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then Brenda asks Nate to go get espressos and go for a walk on the beach with her. But Nate says he can't because he's going to Vegas with David for a funeral directors conference that David is speaking at, because Nathaniel was supposed to give the speech. So David volunteered to fill in and is nervous about it. And also they want to let Gilardi know that they know that Kroner burned down the house across the street. And then Brenda says, the ongoing pissing contest. And she says, that'll be good for you and David, and tells Nate to call her from Vegas. And he says, I will, unless I'm flailing about in a pool having sex with some showgirl, as he walks out. And then Brenda laughs and says, I'll miss you. And I love them.
Okay, I just had another.
But then the last thing that happens here before you say that, then her phone rings again as soon as Nate walks out, presumably Billy, and she yells, oh, fuck you. So
okay,
he's not leaving her alone.
Before I do my notes, I just had a thought, and it's a speculation for the writer.
Okay.
I'm hearing a lot of peeing. We have the pissing contest.
Oh.
We have Nate peeing on the side of the thing.
Mm-hmm. Angela's water sports.
Yep.
Bit.
I'm wondering if Alan Ball has a water sports kink fantasy.
Alan Ball. Care to comment? Or it could be any one of the multitude of writers they have on this show, because there's literally a different writer every episode. Not literally, but almost.
Okay, so I noticed in this scene that when Nate was getting dressed, Brenda was peeping at his penis.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice that.
It was very cute and very subtle, and either it was really good writing or really good improv acting, because it definitely felt like
real.
Yes. And it was so quick you wouldn't have noticed it. I don't know. It was pretty cool. And then did I put a timestamp on that one? Because that 5:43. So if you want to go back and check it out, I think it's around 5 minutes, 43 seconds. Mm-hmm. Then I also had a question, because Nate says his dad was scheduled to do this speech and already, but David ended up volunteering to fill in. How long exactly has it been since Nathaniel's death? Because who's booking these speeches?
Well, it had to have been obviously booked before he died, and he died on Christmas. Has there been any indication of around what time of year it is now?
No. And there's no snow, so I don't know anything.
Well, they're in LA, Courtney.
I know.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's what I mean. Like, there's no seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to keep our eyes open for an indicator.
I'm just curious. And the time, I'm sure it's irrelevant, but just...
Right. That was
food for
something
thought.
I had wondered, too. Okay, so then we see...
It would also give us a time frame of how long Brenda and Nate have actually been together, too.
I would be interested to know that as well. So David is doing the intake for Dillon with his parents. The dad, Cooper, tells them that they don't know what they're even doing there. The hospital just sent them there. And he literally means that he does not know why they are there. Like, they don't know what they're doing there. And they're both clearly still in complete shock. I can't even imagine. They can't comprehend having a funeral for him and have not yet accepted that he's gone. So this scene really highlights David's lack of interpersonal skills here and Nate's amazingly strong empathy, just even in the tone that they're both speaking in. But David says, it might help you. or it might help if you think of it as less of a funeral and more of a way to say goodbye to him. And then the mom says, well, I don't want to say goodbye. He just barely got here. And David responds, of course, it's difficult for anyone to come to terms with something as unexpected as this. But, and then Nate, thank God, interrupts him and says, it's not just difficult. It's not even remotely possible. Some babies are just too good for this world. We'll fix things so you can spend as much time with him as you need.
Sick to my stomach. I could feel the physical pain in my stomach. And I was so irritated with David. It seemed like it was an inconvenience for him to be in that room right then and there. I was just
no empathy.
Shocked. It was awful. And yes, Nate was absolutely perfect in doing the things that needed to be said or done. And I'm not going to lie. It is confusing when somebody dies, let alone your own child. I remember when my grandpa died with my grams, I was the one that did the calling of the things. What do we do next? We have a dead body at the hospital. Where do we go from here, basically? Mm-hmm. And it really is confusing. It is not as easy to figure these things out as you would think. And if you're the person, if you don't have a Courtney to help Grams, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you're thinking. You don't even know what day it is.
Right. Yeah. Which is also, too, that's such an important thing that so many people don't realize. I feel like if you have a support system, it's so easy to take it for granted.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people, though, who don't have anybody. So if they go through something like that, they don't have, like you said, a Courtney or a mom or a dad or a sister or a brother or a boyfriend or a husband or a girlfriend or a wife or whatever it is. Some people just don't have that person to support them. That's why it's so important to have and you can social services and funding.
Something, because there is people will try to pull your leg and get you the biggest bang for your buck and just advantage. Pull you into that was the word I was looking for. I'm just irritated right now.
I also want to take back what I said about David. I don't think that he has no empathy. I think he's just completely not self-aware and has no tact. I think he has a good heart. I don't think that he
also has a lot going on, which I am not making an excuse for. I'm not excusing his behavior.
Right. That's a good point.
I'm just acknowledging the fact that his brain is not at work right now.
Yep.
And this is a job where you kind of have to be on, and you have to leave your shit at the door.
Yeah.
And be there for the people that you're.
And he I bet if you asked him, he would say he thinks he does. But he's so in his head, like you're saying, he doesn't even realize how in his head he is. Because he's comparing
and it comes out
Angela.
later how very confused. And yes, with Angela, he's not right now.
If you think, okay, so let's say comparing those two, David, I could see David saying to Angela, you need to leave your shit at the door. But I mean, she liked to bring her whole self into work, but also if she was put into that situation, she would have done a way better job than David did. So there's multiple layers to that idea of leaving your shit at the door,
Unless it can be used as a superpower.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Be aware of the energy that you bring in.
Right. And Angela could learn from that too, but right.
Don't you talk shit about my Angela.
Oh, I actually am glad that she came up because I was thinking about her since we recorded our last episode, and there was a part, you're going to get so pissed at me. I'm not talking shit. I don't dislike her or anything.
You do your thing,
but
I'll defend her.
We were kind of talking about, I was listening to that episode our episode, and we were talking about how she's who she is. She can be who she wants. There's whatever. And we were had a little bit of a conversation around ideas of professionalism or something. But I would argue that at least in today's world, some of what she did could be considered sexual assault.
Which parts?
Well, talking about anything sexual like that, saying to David everything she said to him about his sex life.
It could be an HR issue.
Anything. Remember when we worked at Hardee's and what's his face asked me if I stuffed my bra?
Yeah, I think he got in big ass trouble.
I think he got fired.
Oh yes, he did.
And because he said something to you too about you were cleaning something, and he's like, "Well, you're down there."
Yep.
Yeah, but she wasn't saying it.
We were
like
also
that.
Children, and he was not.
Right.
But he's actually no longer with us anymore.
Oh, R.I.P. Troy. But no, he
Yes, you're right,
literally
though.
just had like a low IQ. I don't think that man knew what he was saying. But not forget that. Not trying to defend him. That was a different situation. But I'm saying that you can't talk like that in a workplace. Like that is
It would raise issues with HR.
right. And even, I mean, not even just with HR, like, yes, it would, but some people do consider that. And what's the word I'm looking for? I just can't, like, the only word I'm thinking of is like assault, but like some people consider that, I don't know. I mean, imagine if the roles were reversed and it was a
Yep.
guy saying that shit to a girl. Like, if I was David and a man that acted like Angela came and started working for me and talking to me, of asking me about my sex life and about kinks and being talking about farts and stuff like that, like I would feel violated.
Uncomfortable.
And I would not, be okay with that. But because she was in a less powerful, she's a woman.
Oh.
So it's like we're seeing her as like she's just who she is, like let her do what she wants. But I felt like it was important to like acknowledge that just if you're removing the character from it and just looking at the behavior and the setting, that it was inappropriate. A lot of it was, not all of it. But
Do you think that because I'm trying to figure out how to word this, her intentions were not to make them uncomfortable or control or power, where a lot of times
that's what sexual assault is all about, is power. But she doesn't have that element because that's not what she was doing. So that is a very good point. It's a very interesting thing to think about.
Yes. Thankfully, we don't have to make the rules on what that was.
Yeah.
Because I just am seeing it so much, and I am such a huge feminist. Like I really will always, as much as I can, vouch for women. And it's interesting when you peel the layers back, how that situation could be completely different.
And it's almost like in order to have spaces where women are protected, you also have to be able to say that behavior is not only just not okay for men, but it's also not okay for, because you know what I mean?
Correct.
Because we have to have like some kind of structure here.
Yep.
But.
And the equality of, gender. That is really interesting.
I went down a rabbit hole in my brain thinking about that after, because I do feel the same as you. Like foundationally speaking, as a human, I don't think Angela was a bad person. And I do think that people should be allowed to be who they are, and you shouldn't be disliked. It's shitty for someone to dislike someone just because they're not afraid to say what they're thinking and talk about themselves.
Yep.
But there are layers there.
Yeah, I'm literally like second guessing my life right now. No, I'm just kidding. Just a lot. That's good. It's always good to just think about things and be on the other side. So thank you for bringing that to my...
And be willing to look at things, look at things differently and frame things differently in your head when you're presented with a new perspective or whatever. Because that was, even when we talked about it last week, I wasn't even thinking about that. It wasn't until later on that I was like, wait a minute.
Quickly, I have to say, I just was feeding Tave and I'm like, trying to think about all of this stuff now. And I think that the reason that Angela can get away, well, sort of get away with the way that she acts and talks and speaks and dresses, in my mind, she's clearly didn't get away with it with David. But for me, I think it's because I've been so conditioned to be afraid of men because of my experiences.
Yeah.
So if I was in a situation that and the tables were turned and David was being and acting like Angela, that would make me uncomfortable. And but oh my God, now I'm backtracking too, because I'm thinking, how do we know David hasn't been in a situation like that? I mean, the statistics do show that men are generally the aggressors when it comes to sexual assault. And
But just like we saw with Keith and David in that last scene of the last episode, where David was kind of being the aggressor.
Yes.
It's interesting too. And we touched on that, but just that it's not always about gender, It's power, essentially.
And And men have had the power for years and years
Right.
and years.
That's why it always is typically defaulted to men and women.
Yes.
But sometimes yeah.
Okay, so that was a huge tangent. And I think the main point is don't be a dick.
Yeah. Don't sexually assault people, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
And I will never work in a corporate company.
Yeah.
Or another company.
God.
I will be fired.
Imagining you...
Going back to the corporate world,
yeah.
I would last 8 seconds.
Yeah.
That's actually
I don't
scary.
like it. I don't like it either because it is kind of a annoying thing that society has conditioned us in like our capitalistic society to like you have to be and act and dress and look and behave a certain way.
Yes,
like,
robotically.
You can't be your full authentic self, which I'm not saying you should be able to like go.
If you're a pedophile, you should be able to be
right.
Yeah,
but like
no, there's definitely standards.
Just like okay,
but where are the standards?
Having a picture of yourself wearing a skimpy outfit and holding a drink might get somebody fired from their corporate job. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that.
Even outside of work, you can't be yourself sometimes.
Yeah. So whatever.
Christ, I post titty pics places, and I'm a professional woman with children.
Yeah. I think we're a really interesting parallel to observe for this conversation because you are not in a corporate environment. Technically I kind of am. I don't go into the office, but I work for a company. So I do have to kind of worry about those things. And it's, like even just deciding to do this podcast, when we were talking about it, there were
you had to think about it.
Yeah. And I still do. And I don't even know, hopefully never have to deal with any issues with that. But it's like, ultimately, I'm just like, I should be able to do this. Like, we're not doing anything wrong. You know what I mean? But it's still the fact that people have to think about that just because of where they're employed. Like, companies don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? About the people. It's all about money. So fuck you. We're literally here on this planet for a blip of time. Fuck off. Like, Jesus. Anyway, okay. We're getting way too off. So,
I feel like we should. I almost was like, I'm going to drink a THC seltzer before this. I'm so glad we did because we would be at 3 minutes, not 7.
Yes.
Jesus Christ. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. I feel like those are good conversations. But okay, so then David kind of gives Nate a look when he interrupted. So really quick recap, since we went on such a tangent, Nate interrupted David to say, you can't even imagine, we'll make sure you have enough time with your baby and stuff. So David kind of gives Nate a look. I was wondering what he was thinking and feeling. Was he thankful that Nate stepped in and can see that he's more skilled in this area? Or is he irritated that Nate interrupted him and doesn't see why it was necessary and better for them? So I want to think that he recognizes it. Everyone can't be good at everything. It's not even a diss to David. Nate has plenty of his own faults too. So you think that he was irritated?
I think there was a lot going on in his head. I think he got jolted back out of his weird funk that he's going and maybe realized that
his default was to be annoyed, but then
realized that he, like you were saying, was being saved by Nate. And I think that was a slap in his face because he needed to be pulled out of being a robot. Yeah. And he got mad at Nate for it.
Yeah.
Which is just ironic.
It didn't show him like getting mad, but it showed him looking at him kind of like his pissy David look. You know?
It was an annoyance look, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So then we see Rico and Nate in the prep room with Rico as he unzips the body bag that holds Dillon's body. Rico's clearly taken aback by seeing the body of the baby boy. Remember, he has a son and one on the way, so understandable.
So David then says, you should have been there for the funeral intake. The parents are practically kids themselves. They didn't even know they were supposed to have a funeral. And my notes were, fuck you, David. I was so pissed that it was just so gray. The words that came out of his mouth, if they had color, they would have been gray. It was disgusting.
That is so interesting. I feel like I'm totally seeing your pissed offness here too. Because I did not get that at all from that. But I can see in your frame of mind, and maybe even not that it would be perceived that way. I literally wrote the opposite. I felt like that comment maybe showed that he had empathy for the family. So to my last point, I think that he is coming to learn from and appreciate Nate. But the reason that I thought that, I took it as him saying, like, he saw Rico's reaction. He was like, I know, like, basically saying, I know, it's so crazy. You should have seen how young the parents even are. Like, they're so young too. They're just still basically kids themselves. I took it as saying,
that is so interesting.
Kind of agreeing with Rico's reaction of how fucked up it is. But you took it as like just a bitchy comment.
Yep.
Which I
can't even like see what you're saying now, because I'm also like, David was speaking in a way that it was
like he was unaffected.
It was, yes, that, and that he said they didn't even know they were supposed to have funeral, relating that back to them being kids. That has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. You're taking it as a dig, or like he was throwing a dig or throwing shade kind of in a way, which he does do a lot.
Yep. So I do think that was happening also simultaneously. Him just lacking the capacity to be empathetic for like a minute. Mm-hmm. And he just like, what I think should have happened if he was mentally there was to stop, maybe gaze at the baby for a second and give Dillon just a moment of silence. Like, if you watch the scene, Nate and Rico are both standing there by the baby going through something in their head, and he just fixing his tie or something, and yep, should have seen the kids, the parents, their kids themselves didn't even know they were supposed to have a funeral.
The way you just described that right now really made me, I feel like, understand why you felt that way. Because because like you have been saying, you were so affected by the death scene. So you're almost, I feel like, feeling very protective of the baby.
Of Dillon, yes.
And that's what made you feel like that. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, obviously it was sad for me too, but I understand that it's way closer to home for you because you literally have an infant in the next room right now.
Yes, I'm thinking that's Octavia right there.
Right.
Laying on the thing. And for him to speak like that, and
I get that.
Know, it was just so dismissive.
It's really interesting. And I'd be curious to hear if there's anyone, since there's two different perspectives there. What's the consensus, or what's the most...
what did you guys think and feel in that scene? And if you don't remember,
I bet there's a lot of moms who would agree with you.
Yeah.
It's almost like an instinctual reaction.
Yes. Like I can feel it right here.
Mm-hmm. The mom instinct. Okay.
One of the hardest things about being a parent too is it actually like physically hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. Oh God. Okay. So then
Nate and David are getting ready to leave for the conference, and they leave Rico alone to work on the body.
Yes, and I'm just feeling all sorts of things for him. This has to be super tough knowing he's having a baby on the way. The baby's probably slightly smaller than what he's staring at right now.
Right, his baby in Vanessa's tummy.
In Vanessa's belly.
So Ruth walks into David's apartment and startles him as she walks in with some of his laundry. So do you remember this scene?
Yes.
As she walks in, she sees the used condom wrapper from the night before laying on the ground. So after Ruth sees the condom wrapper, David sees the bottle of lube sitting on the coffee table and the wrapper, and quickly
I didn't see the
them.
Lube. I saw the condom wrapper.
It was really quick, but
I watched him grab it, but I didn't see him before.
He sees it, and in like one swift motion, he like kicks the wrapper under a table and grabs the lube, and Ruth probably, I don't know if she's that perceptive with those.
She saw the condom.
Things. For sure, the condom. Yeah, you're right. I don't know if she had perceived the lube sitting there, but she had already seen the literal human man, so it doesn't matter. But Ruth tells him she wants to ask him something. David says he's in a hurry. I think he knew what she was going to ask, and she says, I just wanted to know, are you good? And David interrupts her before she can finish saying the word gay and says, Mom, can we talk about this when I get back from Vegas? And Ruth does her weird Ruth thing where she laughs and says, of course, that's a lovely idea. We'll talk about it when you get back from Vegas. And then walks out.
This scene pissed me off again because this is going to sound so insensitive of David's sexuality right now. And remember, I am queer, so I'm not trying to downplay anything. The idea that this was such a big deal to him that he couldn't have the fucking conversation and just tell his mom he's gay and there's literally a baby so close of Like, there's so many other big things going on. Just fucking tell her.
And she was
brought it
asking
up
directly.
Yes.
So clearly she was open to hearing it.
I know and so the insensitive part was he probably may want to have this be a bigger moment than just like a quick.
He might, it is fair
conversation
for him to not be ready in that moment. But I think he is so terrified of confrontation.
Yep. He needs to just fucking grow up. I'm so sorry. And I do really love David.
Same thing with Keith last episode when he said, some people just don't realize it, that they need to be with people or whatever. Like, he can't just say it, you know? So
that's where my extremely frustrating piece came.
Next, Claire finds out from Gabe's mom after calling her to check in on Gabe that he's in the hospital. And so she rushes to her car and we see her driving off.
And I wrote, Gabe better be okay because I am physically ill from this episode already.
So then we see Nikolai at the flower shop scolding Ruth for walking in 10 minutes late. Ruth apologizes and Nikolai tells her that they need to talk. It's about your work, he says. Apparently, there have been complaints from customers, thanks to Robbie for sharing that little bit of info, about Ruth's arrangements. So Nikolai tells her that Robbie will do the arrangements from now on and Ruth is to work the register and help with the books. But Ruth becomes really upset because that is why she loves her job so much, is working with the flowers. So Robbie tells her that not all flowers are for a funeral. So basically people don't like her work because she's too used to funereal flower arrangements and not happy ones.
Yeah. Which I didn't know there was a difference, but I did find out later in that episode that you can tell.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm irritated this whole episode. So just bear with me. Why can't someone just show Ruth different flower arrangements? Like, she clearly wants to do this. Why is it just a quick, like, you're done? Like, somebody just give her.
As we know, Nikolai doesn't have very good interpersonal skills either.
Yeah.
So then, as Nate and David are packing up their car to leave for Vegas, Nate asks David if he's going to nail Gilardi for that arson job in his speech. And David says no. Nate asks if he minds if he says something to him, and David says, yes, don't. Nate calls him a pussy, and David points out that there's no evidence and tells him he doesn't want him picking a fight with Gilardi. Nate reminds David that he did threaten to kill him that one time.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a funny. I wasn't thinking about that.
I forgot about that.
But typical David doesn't want to rock the boat. Then Brenda pulls into the driveway, announcing that she's coming with them, which was such a you move once again. David gives Nate a look, and Nate shrugs and greets Brenda, and she says, I need to get out of here. And Nate says, all right.
I really liked this moment because it showed that could have gone a lot of ways.
Yep.
David could have gotten pissed.
But he doesn't want to rock the boat.
Let's be real. And he, with everything going on with David and his track record in the past 3 episodes, I'm surprised he didn't get pissed. I'm surprised he wasn't just like, not like, no, you can't come. I'm not surprised he didn't say that. I'm surprised he didn't act like a little bitch about it.
I think, that is interesting to think about. I think it speaks to David's, I mean, he obviously has to like Brenda at least a little bit to not have freaked out.
I do think he likes Brenda. That's true.
I do too. And I think she makes him comfortable. And they have had, even though they haven't had direct, like, deep emotional conversations, they have connected in deep ways, like when she brought them on the bus and he broke down. And that was all thanks to Brenda. And she was there when Nate found out he was gay at the restaurant.
They really don't have a lot of dialogue between the two.
No, they haven't. But she's still been, like, very just in her nature supportive of him, I think. And so I wonder if that has to do with I mean, he was annoyed. He had an annoyed look, but he always has an annoyed look.
Yes, it's hard to decipher all of them. We should have like annoyed faces of David. Which one are you today?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting.
For sure. So then Rico and Vanessa are together at Vanessa's ultrasound appointment, and Rico is excited about seeing what he thinks is a penis on the monitor. We don't find out the sex of the baby in this scene, but Vanessa does learn from her doctor that she has preeclampsia, which is prenatal hypertension. She says it could cause her, the doctor tells her that it could cause her and the baby some problems if it gets out of hand, but they're not going to let that happen. Rico, having been so affected by working on the body of baby Dillon, is immediately on edge, and we can see that he's stressing. The doctor puts Vanessa on bed rest, but reassures them that everything will be fine. We know that Rico knows all too well that she can't promise them that, though. Nobody can. So it doesn't really calm his nerves because he's literally has this corpse of an infant
that he has to embalm
to remind him that anything could happen. Yeah.
This scene also kind of irritated me. Go figure. For a couple of reasons. I did get reminded that this was an older show, and it's interesting how they portray pregnant women in shows. I've been through this 5 times because I've had a miscarriage too. So I understand the language and the lingo of being in for an ultrasound, and all of that stuff is just not how it is. So like, I understand that this was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. First of all, preeclampsia does not always end in a C-section. So if you do have preeclampsia or you're ever diagnosed while you're pregnant, please know that it doesn't always end up that way, which is what the doctor made it sound like. They can induce early too, so they don't have to just go in for the C-section. That's what she said. She's like, oh, if we need to get them out earlier, we'll do a C-section or whatever. Not always the case. And in fact, it doesn't have to be if you unfortunately have to advocate for yourself, or if you have a great doula. I have lots of resources if you need any of those. I don't like how little info and the matter of fact that this doctor is feeling and saying. Like, I know that she's supposed to be the one that is making sure that Vanessa stays calm and whatever, but give her some information. She should know more about her body, what's going on, explain why these things happen. Like, there's just very little dialogue between them, which pissed me off. Mm-hmm. A pregnant woman should have more info and feel more supported to make her own decisions. This wasn't the doctor's decisions. There's definitely a lot of other options that she should have known. We've come so far in prenatal care. This scene is crazy to me.
I like that. So Claire walks into Gabe's hospital room, and we find out that Gabe OD'd on speed and heroin, likely on purpose. His mom is pissed because she has to foot the bill. Gabe is defensive and tells Claire he would have been fine if she had just minded her own fucking business, and he wishes she would just leave already. Yeah, I think he was embarrassed, honestly.
Yes.
Claire is clearly hurt, but also pissed. She throws the magazines she brought for Gabe on the bed and walks out.
This scene confused me a lot because I didn't think that this was I didn't think that this was an OD. I wrote, I'm feeling like this was more of a suicide attempt. Yeah. This doesn't seem like Gabe. This hasn't been his attitude and his demeanor in the last few episodes, so it was very confusing for me. I'm also confused about that line that he said to Claire. He would have been fine if she had just minded her own fucking business. So we missed something. I remember the phone call. She told his mom that she doesn't think that he is okay.
Yeah. So I'm guessing they want us to assume that when Claire told his mom that, put those pieces together and banged on the door to tell Vicky that he is off doing something dangerous, that then somehow she
intervened
they found him, and that they really don't give us any details. So it was just a little bit to your own interpretation, but I'm assuming that he is kind of saying here, my suicide attempt would have worked if you hadn't intervened.
So basically either Vicky or Claire or somebody found him.
Yeah.
Wherever he is.
Not Claire, because Claire didn't know where he was until...
Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't like that. There's too much. Too many
Vicky must have found him somehow, or had got someone to find him, because she's the one who called Claire to tell him where he was. Or maybe not. Maybe someone just found him and Gabe was just talking out of his ass and was just embarrassed and said that to whatever.
I guess we don't have to have an answer for everything.
Yeah. So then the trio of Nate, Brenda, and David are checking into the funeral directors conference, putting on their name badges. Woo! Courtney's not irritated at this part. Brenda's using a fake name, of course. Nate asks her, who's Jasmine Brecker? And Brenda says, she's either a federal judge or a sex surrogate. I haven't decided yet. Hilarious.
Why am I living in this house here? I need to be out at the funeral director's things pretending to be Jasmine Brecker.
Should we go out one night with fake names?
Yes, we do. I love doing that stuff. It is so much fun. I wrote this. I love Brenda's alter ego. I love playing that game. It is so much fun. I went on a cruise with my girlfriend, Dana, and we all had different names. Mine was Persephone.
Oh my God. I feel like I remember you talking about this.
Or wait, was it Persephone? Yeah, it was. Percy for short. And Dana's was, oh God, she really went all in. I'm surprised she didn't change her name when we got back. What the hell was it? I can't remember. Okay, it'll come to me.
Okay. So Gilardi then approaches Nate and David at the conference. They throw shade at each other. Then Gilardi starts to walk away and Nate stops him and says, "Oh, Matt, I have something for you. This is a pack of matches. This is for a can of lighter fluid." And he hands him a wad of cash. He says, "Next time you need to unload some cumbersome real estate, you'll be all set." So that was, Gilardi looked shocked, and David tells Nate after Gilardi walks away, "That wasn't smart." And Nate says, "Whatever, I should have set his hair on fire." Then Brenda walks up to them with a shot and says, "Bottoms up," and they all toss it back. And I really loved that moment for them. Okay, really quick though, another thing about that with the matches, there's a quick blip right before that happened where Nate leans into Brenda
and says, "Did you bring the matches?"
I got the matches, and in that moment I was like, "What the fuck? Like, why does he need matches?"
Yeah,
but then we find out right away. So
that seemed so silly. I loved it because I'm glad. Yes, the bit, like it seemed like a bit.
Yeah,
to me,
I know, I loved it too, though. But
it was so corny.
Corny, yes, very.
But I was
got
happy.
The job done. Yeah, Gilardi looked like he shit his pants, and then I loved their little bottoms up, and then it shows the three of them tossing back the shot. They needed Brenda there. Everyone always needs Brenda there. So Nate, David, and Brenda are walking around the Vegas Strip that evening, and Nate invites David to get food with them, and David declines, saying that he's going to get room service and practice his speech. Nate and Brenda walk off together, and Brenda has the most Courtney moment I've seen thus far. Brenda says, "2 words for you, lap dance." And Nate's like, "Yeah, who says I want a lap dance?" And Brenda says, "Who says it's for you, baby?" And Nate's
loved
like,
it.
Ooh, kinky.
I mean, really, when you're in Vegas, you got to get out. And then
Courtney literally got a lap dance on her birthday.
I did. Oh, should we put picture?
You have to
Winston.
send it to me.
I will. They gave us a picture.
Then I
got like 13 lap dances.
Yeah. She had all of them lined up on stage.
It was so fun.
Good God. So then right after that happens, though, we see Billy lurking in the crowd, watching Nate and Brenda walk off together, looking creepy as fuck.
Yeah. Are you fucking kidding me, Billy? And then I also was wrong about this, sort of. But I put, David is totally not going to bed early. I have $10 that he's going to get his dick wet. But it was the next day.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. He didn't go out.
He really didn't.
Okay. So back in Gabe's hospital room, Claire has returned the next morning, shockingly, and is, well, not super shockingly, but
I thought that was so sweet.
Initially thought that she had gone home.
Mm-hmm.
But so she's sitting next to Gabe's bed waiting for him to wake up. And Gabe's still being an ass, and he says to her, "I thought I told you to leave." Claire tells him she drove all the way here, so she wasn't just going to turn back, and she slept in her car. Gabe asks her if she's going to tell his mom about, and then he trails off, but he's referencing the fact that he knows that Claire has put the pieces together that his OD was actually a suicide attempt. She tells him that she hasn't decided, and she gives Gabe an Egg McMuffin because she knows that they're his favorite. She loves him so much. And Gabe finally fucking says thank you.
I love that Claire stayed back with Gabe. I thought it was really sweet. And then, Chloe, do you remember when you snuck me in McChickens when I was on the 5th floor?
Yes. Do other people have the 5th floor, or was it just in Hibbing?
That's just what it's called. So it was the psych ward that I was admitted to. Surprise.
In 8th grade.
In 8th grade.
Did you admit yourself?
No, my mom made me go.
Okay. Yeah, I know it was a whole thing.
It was a whole fucked up situation. I'm actually fine. I am crazy, but that's not why I should have been up there. This was like a whole power dynamic struggle with.
That's what it was with your stepdad and stuff, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was a lot.
You were just
I was a very tough child growing up, and had my parents had resources and tools to deal with it. Like one of my diagnoses is oppositional defiance disorder. So if any of you guys have children with ODD, call me. That's one of my favorite things. I definitely think one of my children has it, and I love dealing with them because I'm treating them how I think that it would have been helpful to be treated as a child. Not saying my mom was amazing.
No.
Anyway, so I'm up on the 5th floor. I also have OCD, which I didn't get diagnosed till I was an adult with, but now going back, I know I cannot eat hospital food. Like I literally can't eat there. So I was there for 4 days, and part of the intake information that they like watch you. If you don't eat, you can't leave. So like they want to make sure you're eating healthy and you're not a threat to yourself. But I literally could not eat hospital food. I've never been able to. There's so many OCD things about it. I can't explain it to you in one episode. So I asked Chloe to come up and to sneak me in McChickens, and she used to have big boobs, so she would put the McChickens in her sweatshirt.
I didn't yet, though. That was in 8th grade. My boobs didn't come to like 9th or 10th
It was
grade.
the last day of school after you ate the
California
cheeseburger. So it's probably around the same time. They were starting to sprout.
This was in the fall of 8th grade, and I so vividly remember this. I think Alex was with me when we came to see you.
I had Mrs. Unseth, so whatever grade she taught.
It was in 8th grade.
Okay.
I know it was in 8th grade. But, okay, now that we're talking about this, I'm like, did I just tell my mom to, like,
Bring you to the hospital?
Bring me through McDonald's and then bring me to the hospital? Like, I don't even remember. But, yeah, I also don't think it was against the rules to bring food to you. I think we just snuck it in because we wanted to sneak something in.
No, I think that you couldn't bring anything from the outside.
Well, they definitely didn't do a very good job of checking us then.
No, they didn't. Because you guys, we're not dangerous.
Yeah.
We're not.
Little 8th graders. God, that was, memes.
And then I had another one of our friends come in and eat the food for me because they check to see if your food is eaten. And she's like, you don't like rigatonis? She's eating the rigatonis. I'm like, no, dude, I cannot eat this. Like, I don't know how else to explain.
Eat your food?
Voss.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I'm sitting on the 5th floor as an 8th grader with a bunch of really amazing people, actually, that were all there for reasons. And they're all adults.
I remember sitting up there with you in the lounge.
Some
just
questionables.
Like hanging out.
But they're also beautiful people. Such beautiful people.
Yeah. Growing up on the range once again. So, yeah.
Another tangent.
Rico then is in the prep room at the Fishers, struggling once again to perform the embalming on baby Dillon.
Rico is struggling. I am struggling. We're all struggling.
Then we see Ruth at a floral arrangement class with a very perky instructor.
That sounds exactly like Ruth, by the way.
Yeah, she does kind of. Ruth is excited that she knew the answer to her question about why they need to split the stems. So she's having a good time. Then Rico is sitting at the kitchen table at his home waiting for Vanessa to get home. When she walks in the door, he scolds her for not being in bed, and it starts to turn into an argument, and Vanessa realizes it's about the baby at work. Rico breaks out and tells her he can't do it, and he says, and now I've got this real bad feeling. I haven't done a baby since Julio was born. David always does that. We know that this is really affecting him because he tells us the viewing is that afternoon and he hasn't even processed the body yet. So Vanessa tells him, some babies just aren't meant for this world, Rico, but this one is, talking about their baby. So it was super sweet how much Rico loves his babies, but it also makes for a really interesting introspection on his character when we start to learn more about him and his prejudices and conservativeness. Or any conservative perspective for that matter, specifically pro-life, pro-choice, etc. We don't even need to go down that path because you don't know what I'm talking about yet, but I wanted to put that in there because we're seeing how much he deeply values human life, babies, all of that. And then, I mean, kind of spoiler alert, but not really, but we do come to find out that he has pretty conservative views on a lot of things. And it's interesting to first see his character in this light of it being shown in a very loving, not coming from a source of control or power, and how he loves life, human life, But I don't know. I was just thinking about how obviously I know his character is intended to be perceived as a conservative character who would have been pro-life. So it's just weird to feel this for him when we see him feeling all these feelings about baby Dillon. And then also look at it from, because obviously we both know each other, that we are both pro-choice. And to look at that situation, I'm not saying one thing or the other. I'm not, I'm just saying it's really crazy.
I think I'm lost.
Okay.
So if you were to pull Rico into today's world,
Yeah.
like what?
That's what I'm thinking about, how it's interesting. But okay, let's move on.
Okay. I do think that this whole situation that Rico's going through with the embalmment of Dillon and it happening simultaneously while his wife is pregnant is going to affect him in the future. And I'm trying to think what I was specifically referring to when I wrote this down. But I have a feeling that it was about hyperanxiety as soon as baby is here, like freaking
Wanting
out about
to like
SIDS.
control them.
Yep. And so like I can't remember how he acts, but I can see how that is going to affect him in the future because it's an emotionally triggering situation. And then it's even more emotionally triggering because he's 2 months behind Dillon.
Yeah. So then back at the conference, Nate and David are in a session about cranial reconstruction, and the speaker puts up a before and after photo of Chloe Yorkin. Nate is grossed out, of course, but David points out that they don't even credit Rico by name, and he's going to be furious. I wrote down that I like that David is acknowledging that Rico should have credit for this here.
Yes. Yeah.
That was big of him because his character has not been doing very big things lately.
Yeah, like that was just really frustrating.
Especially,
but they basically stole.
Especially after it, because it was the body that Rico left them for Kroner to do.
Yep.
And he's still saying, wow, fuck them for not giving him credit.
Yeah, that was pretty shitty.
Meanwhile, Brenda is playing blackjack at a casino chatting with a random dude when Billy sits down next to her at the table.
I literally started this scene. This happened within seconds. Watching it, thinking, oh my God, I'm so jealous of Brenda. This looks like so much fun. To then, in that same breath, oh, Jesus, fuck. Billy, what the fuck?
Literally. He's like a little fucking
cockroach.
Rat. Yeah, cockroach. They have a confrontation where Brenda tells Billy that their dad showed her what he had written about her, and Billy tries to tell her that he was kidding, it wasn't serious, but Brenda isn't buying it and tells him to fuck off.
And I'm curious, who's telling the truth, Margaret or Billy? And honestly, I went down a rabbit hole and then I thought, probably neither of them.
Yeah.
What if Billy's not even real?
Literally, they're all living in their own twisted web of lies that nobody, and Brenda probably feels that way too because she doesn't even know what to believe anymore. That's got to be so incredibly frustrating. But
yes,
I think that if they had proof, if they were able to convince Brenda is so intelligent. I don't think that I kind of believe the parents because I don't think they would be able to convince her because she's too smart unless they had like definitive proof.
And if you don't remember from the last episode or the episode before, I don't understand what the big deal is. Either way, Billy's clearly dangerous.
Yeah.
And clearly fucking crazy. Does it matter if he tried to kill himself or everybody else? I mean, I don't think anybody's safe around Billy.
No, I agree. I think from Brenda's perspective, she's telling him like I devoted my life basically to making sure that I did everything I could for you so that if you did kill yourself, I could live with myself saying that I did everything that I could.
Which is selfish in a sense.
Yeah, it is. But I also get it. And so she, in her head, she's thinking this whole time you weren't even at risk of self-harm. I was at risk.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. That is making more sense to me.
But it's still, regardless, he's, like you said, fucked and
yeah,
dangerous. So then when Brenda tries to walk away, Billy grabs her, but then Nate walks up and sees the confrontation and pulls Billy off of Brenda and also tells him to fuck off. Billy's not happy, walks off. Brenda looks truly concerned that Billy followed them there, and Nate says he's not surprised.
I'm worried about the repercussions of Nate intervening. This is really a situation.
So again, we're back in the prep room with Rico and baby Dillon. Rico's still struggling and breaks down crying while holding baby Dillon's little arm. Back at the floral arrangement class, the instructor tells Ruth her arrangement is a little tight. The instructor is a little woo-woo, like she's very into yoga and breathing and stuff.
She probably has an emerald gem in her vagina this whole time.
Literally, she's definitely would be a crystals girl. So she tries to explain to Ruth the importance of breathing and to work from your breathing, and gently calls out the fact that Ruth is a control freak and insinuates that she should perhaps also try antidepressants.
Ruth is a total fucking control freak. I think this is going to be great for Ruth. I think she should just try some marijuana.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Or
some more ecstasy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But yeah, maybe don't make a habit of that one just once in a while. So next up, we see David giving his speech to a room sparsely filled with elderly snoozing funeral directors and Matt Gilardi smirking at him from the audience.
I literally, for a few moments, thought that Gilardi had drugged the crowd.
Spiked the Kool-Aid.
Yes. Because they were like oddly
literally like
sprawled out
and just literally like snoring.
Waiting for their flight to arrive that was 3 hours delayed.
So mid-sentence, David pauses, tosses his note cards in the air, and begins to speak from his heart. And he says, this is his whole speech here. Oh, what the hell? We all know what the real challenge is. How are you doing today, Mr. Gilardi? We all know of a certain organization that controls the flow of prep room supplies, caskets, cemetery property, and flowers to everyone in this room. And believe me, that organization will stoop to almost any means to make sure that the independent funeral home has no future. But hear me out. My father was in this business for over 35 years. He thought it was okay to tell people about a cheaper casket. He didn't always try to talk people out of cremation. There were even times where I actually heard him say, to hell with our profit margin on this. These words are heresy? Is that how you say it? To a certain organization, because profit is all it cares about, no matter how many PR-motivated seminars it sponsors. That organization wants us independently to believe that we cannot afford to be like my father anymore. Well, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Don't get me wrong, my father worried about the bottom line too, but he worried more about other things, like comforting people and helping them face profound loss. Maybe now more than ever, we should all try to be a little more like him. Thank you.
I think this is very interesting that those words came out of David's mouth. I almost want to say that that was also a speech to himself. Yeah. Like he's literally telling himself those words to try to believe them himself.
Yeah. I think so too. But I didn't think about that until you just said it. And it's almost like that he was actively coming to that realization internally
and putting it in the universe that this is my turning point, which it wasn't. But.
Right.
And then Nate and Brenda sat down. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
They were just standing there the whole time.
Yeah. They were standing in the back together. But then when David threw his cards, they're like, ooh, let's take a seat.
Can I get some of that Kool-Aid?
Yeah. So then Nate gives David a standing ovation, and the rest of the room follows as Gilardi and his associates walk out. They don't follow them walking out. I wrote that poorly. Everyone gives him a standing ovation except for Gilardi and his associates. They would just walk out of the room. David asks Nate, how'd I do? And Nate says, are you kidding? You kicked some serious ass, you big freak. And then he gives him a big bear hug, and it was super cute.
The scene with Gilardi walking out reminded me of like being in high school and like giving a dig to the mean girls, and then they all just snooty walk off. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, they're losers.
Yeah.
So at the Fisher house, Ruth asks Claire if she thinks that she's a control freak. Claire says yes. Where do you think David gets it from? And Ruth asks Claire where she had been because she didn't come home the night before. So Claire tells Ruth all about Gabe's situation. She really tells her.
Does she tell him that it's Gabe?
Yep.
Okay.
She really tells her literally everything, except she lies about the suicide attempt and tells her the OD was an accident. Ruth kind of freaks out about the situation and tells Claire to stay away from Gabe. But when Claire retorts that he doesn't have anyone else, Ruth expresses her concern for Claire Not that she will be influenced by Gabe, but that she doesn't want Claire to get hurt if Gabe ODs again. I think that Claire appreciates Ruth's point, and I also think that Ruth is probably assuming, because she asked Claire, she was like, was it on purpose? And Claire said no, but I think Ruth is probably thinking it is. But I think that Claire appreciates Ruth's point and is realizing that Ruth is coming from a good place when she says that last piece about basically saying, I just don't want you to get hurt. Then Ruth practices her breathing, and Claire is looking at her like, what the fuck are you doing? Because she's like,
yeah. I thought that whole conversation was weird.
yeah, you did write that. Why did you think it was weird? It was weird.
I don't know. There was just so many emotions going on, and Claire is clearly affected by this. And I don't think that telling your daughter, I don't want you around him anymore, is going to do any help. Because right then it just put a dagger in their relationship.
That was not helpful, that piece of it.
No, because now if Claire is not going to listen to her mom. Not a single daughter is going to be like, okay, mother, you're absolutely right. I'm just going to stop helping this guy that I truly feel like needs me to be there. Mm-hmm. And then if something does happen and Claire does need a support, she's not going to go to Ruth.
Right. I think that was Ruth's like knee-jerk reaction about the, you better stay away from him.
Because that's what she does all the time is her knee-jerk reactions. Like, if you're going to have knee-jerk reactions, fine, but just practice what you want to say beforehand.
Yeah. She's growing. She definitely still has room to grow. And I think that's illustrating that. But I do think that it comes, obviously, and we find out right after that it's just as you know, and any mom knows, it comes from a place of protection, wanting to protect your kids. She just doesn't know how to articulate it in a better way yet. Mm-hmm. But I do think that Claire kind of noticed at the end, she was very perceptive. She is very perceptive. And I think that she was like getting it, like, okay, you just are worried about me.
I am seeing Claire being much more emotionally mature than Ruth. Mm-hmm. I think Claire there's so many scenarios I could point out, but specifically what?
I just got the chills because it's so interesting, because the first thing I thought when you said that was like, well, that kind of makes sense. And that's kind of common for like a child to eventually surpass their parents in terms of emotional maturity, because of just how, time works, advancements, and you grow up around different things. And then I was thinking about how I relate to Claire so much and her relationship with her mom.
Oh my God.
Crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. That is interesting.
Literally, like, extreme parallels. So back at the conference, David is a star amongst the other independent funeral home owners.
I've always wanted to be the star of a funeral director's conference. That's on my bucket list.
I thought you were going to say something serious at first.
I was serious.
David and Nate connect with the other funeral directors, and they take David out for drinks. Nate and Brenda are super happy for and proud of David,
but decline cordially their invitation.
Yes. Then we see Rico at baby Dillon's service, and Dillon's parents thank Rico for making him look so perfect. I think this really gives Rico some closure for this whole situation and allows him to feel proud of doing what he could for this poor family in their time of need.
I was thinking there's a lot to unpack on this scene. Rico is too afraid to talk about his baby on the way. You can tell he's kind of tiptoeing around that. I think he said he only had one son, and then he goes, and because he was going to say the second one. And I wonder if it's out of respect to the family or if it's low-key guilt that he's worried that talking about his unborn child will then jinx him into the same situation. And that is like my weird...
Your OCD talking?
Yep. My intrusive thoughts.
I was just going to say, yeah.
It's like... because that's how my fucking brain works. Like, I'll literally visually see things.
I get that, though, because I do have thoughts like that sometimes, too. But I think that it was...
out of respect.
Yeah, that's how I perceived it, at least.
But we also thought he was on the spectrum, and I would...
We think everyone's on the spectrum.
That's true. But I could see him dealing with
including
some sort
ourselves.
of OCD. Now I'm going to be like, listen, yes, us too. I'm going to be watching him the rest of the time to see if there's any other similarities to that OCD nature.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's so meticulous with his work.
I'm not meticulous, though. That's the difference.
So, well, David is out with the other funeral directors. Nate and Brenda are having fun in Faux Paris in Vegas. I don't know if there's a real name for that or not, but I have never been to Vegas, so I don't know. Snapping pics with a disposable camera. Remember that part? Getting crazy drinks and messing around, having a blast. And they end their night in the hotel room getting it on. And David and the funeral directors are at a strip club, and David is pretending to be into the female dancers. But one of the dancers starts giving David a lap dance because the guys bought it for him. And she can tell he's not enjoying it. David comes right out and tells her, "It's not you, I'm gay." And when she starts getting up, the other men ask him what happened. And the stripper says to them, "He's gay, you idiots." And they all look at him stunned, and they're like, "We wish you would have told us that." And David's like, "So do I, believe me." And he excuses himself to go find his own fun. But do you think they were like pissed, or do you think they were just like, "Oh, we would have done something else"?
I think they were shocked.
Yeah.
So they weren't sure if they were pissed or if they would have done something else. That was just all they could think of. So of course Rob's eyes dart to the screen while we were watching this.
Boobs.
And booties. And so my thoughts were like, oh my God, David. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't even know what to say. This whole thing is just so layered. So I'm just going to skip to the next best part. I asked Rob because I've never been asked, "Are you not enjoying any of this?" Because I don't have a penis. So clearly she was feeling for his boner. And that's why she was saying, "Are you not enjoying any of this?" And
she
I asked,
even came out and said that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she did. So I said, "Rob, would they literally ask you that?"
What did he say?
He said no. Because he's been not hard at a strip club before and then has been hard at a strip club, like getting things. And like, the reason I'm wondering is because I'm a sex coach, and I feel like that's a really rude thing to ask somebody because there's
like,
so many different
there's
so many different reasons
awkward
that somebody couldn't get hard, and
yeah,
it just seemed like a rude thing to ask. But
let us know if anyone's ever asked you that.
yes, if you've ever been asked if you're enjoying this at the strip club. Okay.
So Ruth is hard at work at her flower class, trying to perfect her flower arrangement while practicing her breathing. She gets into a flow all of a sudden and starts to put together this beautiful arrangement that everyone starts gathering around to watch her work in awe.
Another weird bit.
Yeah. And then the teacher is amazed and Ruth is very proud. So yay, Ruth. Then David calls a male prostitute after he leaves the strip club to hook up with and is displeased that he doesn't look like his picture in the ad.
I thought it was Nate in it for a second in like a costume.
I did too.
Okay, good.
They have like the exact same coloring and like the same hair color.
Yeah, and a little bit of mannerisms too.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious about the "you're not a cop" thing. Is that really an entrapment thing? Because I hear this and see it on movies all the time. If somebody asks you if you're a cop and you're like technically supposed to say yes. Otherwise it's called entrapment.
Oh.
I was just curious if there was any legalities behind that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But then how do people like go undercover?
Well, people usually don't say, "Are you a cop?" You have to like, that's why you have to be really undercover. You have to.
But then if you're super undercover and you're like in the middle of a fucking sting operation, and then what if someone just jokingly decides to ask you, "You're not a cop"?
Right. I don't know if there's an
then
actual.
you have to say it. I don't know.
I don't
never
know.
thought about that. I don't know.
But it comes up all the time. Like I've seen this in movies. And
yeah.
If you're a cop, you have to tell me, right?
Okay. So they hook up anyway in a parking garage. And while they're having sex behind a car, David says, "You like that, don't you, faggot?" He's fucking the guy and he says that. So I was like, what the hell? There's some serious like self-loathing with David here. Like, why is he calling him a faggot? I get that like that can be a kink.
Yep. So that's where my mind went. But I didn't think about it in your way. Like we know David. So your kinks and your desires, like they really mean so much.
Mm-hmm. Like psychologically.
Yep. And when they're performed consensually, like if that was okay, like I can totally, because like.
Well, and the guy didn't seem to mind, but still just like analyzing the moment. I'm like,
but I did
what?
that line did strike me too, but just a little bit differently. I was like, oh, interesting.
I don't think you would say that to Keith.
No, but that doesn't mean, oh, I see where you're going.
I think that he's having some self-hatred.
Or who knows? That is, we could spend 3 episodes talking about that, I think.
Yeah.
That specific one line.
Yep.
And my line was, Jesus fucking Christ.
Then the cops roll up.
Because the cops roll up.
And they bust them. And David gets booked into jail for the night and uses his one phone call to call Keith to come and bail him out.
I'm dying. Hi, Keith.
Keith comes through for him and gets his charges dropped and his files tossed. And he tells him he did it because he loves him, but he will never do it again. And tells David that he needs to get himself some help. And then he walks away, leaving David at the station.
Agreed. I was so excited to see Keith tell that Keith still loves David. And I also agree David needs to either seek therapy or take a break from drinking / pills because he is
spiraling.
not. Yeah.
Really quick, we see Vanessa and Rico at home. Vanessa's telling Rico there's something wrong with the baby and they're rushing off to the hospital. Then David, Nate, and Brenda meet each other out front of the hotel to get in the car to drive back home, and they have no idea what happened to David the night before. Nate said something like, "You get lucky last night."
Yes. And I wrote, actually, Nate, someone got lucky this morning when Keith came to the fucking rescue because
he did get lucky.
There is no way that could have happened
otherwise.
Yes.
They would have been like, "Where's David?" Oh, what the fuck? Yeah. Thank God for Keith. Jesus. That was really that really does show that he loves him, because that was way out of his way. And he doesn't even want to be with David right now, clearly, because he just left him there. So he clearly cares about him so much. That was really a big gesture.
And it looks really weird on Keith because he's basically defending this man for fucking another guy in a fucking parking lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he's trying to get David out of a parking ticket.
Right. Yes, and he has to...
Like, he's sort of guilt by association as far as...
defend David to his colleagues at this whatever. Not colleagues, but, like, connections, you know. So it's like, how are you going to do that without kind of putting yourself into a weird situation? But anyway... At Nikolai's flower shop, Nikolai compliments Ruth's work, and Ruth is very pleased, and Robbie is jealous. And Nikolai tells Robbie that he's going to work with the customers, and Ruth is going to do all the arrangements that day.
Today, Ruth do arrangement.
Robbie disses Ruth's diploma that she got from the class. And Nikolai goes, "Have you got your diploma from flower class?" It was so cute. I can't do his... You do it so good.
What did
he goes...
Have you got your diploma from the flower class?
But he's looking at Robbie like, just completely like, how are you gonna diss her? Like, where's your fucking diploma?
Okay, a couple things to say about this. When I was a bartender, we would get people that would go to bartending school to come in, and we would be like, "That's not the same thing."
Yeah.
Like, so what? You have your bartending diploma. And
is that place still open, the bartending school or whatever? That I remember seeing that downtown all the time.
I think so, actually. But there is something to say here about, yes, Ruth did get really good and got her diploma and like whatever. But Robbie has all this years of experience. Like, what's better? Like,
yeah. Piece of paper doesn't make.
Very happy for Ruth though.
Yeah, she didn't need the piece of paper. She just needed to learn how to get in touch with her nervous system, literally. So Claire is back at the hospital visiting Gabe again, and he tells her that he gets to get out of the hospital that day. She lays on the bed with him and shushes him and gives him a kiss, and she says, "I love you." And
is that the first time?
I think that was the first time. And then Gabe strokes her hair and says, "I love you too." And Claire lays on his chest, and Gabe kisses her head, and the turbulence with these two is just crazy. But that was such a tender... You said there were no tender moments. This was a tender moment. It's like one of the only one.
Yeah, it was a tender one.
So then Nate and Brenda are laying on Brenda's bed after the trip, giggling and looking through their photos that they had developed from their Vegas trip, when they find 2 photos of them sleeping in the hotel bed. Obviously, they didn't take these pictures, and Brenda starts freaking out, knowing that Billy had snuck into their fucking room and taken the photos as they slept. And Nate consoles her, but Brenda is seriously perturbed. Like, this has got to be beyond what Billy has ever done before if she's this up.
There's a lot more at stake, too, right now.
Yeah.
For Brenda.
She's actually in love.
I'm just shocked. This is absolutely
Can
scary.
you imagine?
No, I would be shitting my
getting
pants.
your freaking camera developed and seeing pictures of you sleeping.
The violation feeling. Oh,
That's like one of the most terrifying things that I can literally think of. But at least they know who did it, I guess.
yeah. Let's hope it was Billy. Jesus.
Yeah. So then the very last scene in this episode shows us Vanessa and Rico in the delivery room. The doctors are performing a C-section on Vanessa when the baby's heart rate drops and he isn't crying. There's a moment of suspense before baby Augusto starts crying, and Rico and Vanessa snuggle their new baby in relief. But yeah, this was a scary moment.
It even stopped Rob in his tracks. Like, we both were fixated. I was crying and just like...
Did you think that it was gonna be bad?
No, because I knew that there was another baby, but for some reason it brought up a lot, because my last baby was like this too. I actually had her in the entryway of the hospital and she wasn't crying. But we didn't know what was wrong because I didn't have monitors beforehand. Like, I literally was in my nightgown and my purse and one shoe. So
I'll put up the picture.
Really scary. Yeah, we will. We'll pop up the pic. I loved the "you swear to stack of Bibles" that Rico did.
Yeah.
I couldn't even handle myself. I thought I LOL'd, and it did. It just brought up a lot of the memories of
Fabulous comedic
the
relief.
quiet. You don't. Yes, the quiet after a birth is very scary.
Yeah,
because you know that they need to cry, and like, you're trying to analyze everybody's faces and see what's going on, and it's
Yeah, ultimately, Augusto has joined us. That's the end of the episode. So now for mate, date, cremate. So I wrote down for our options David's Vegas sex worker, Brad, David's lap dancer, Amber, and Ruth's flower arrangement teacher. Mate, date, cremate.
Let me think.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
I'm going to mate David's lap dancer, Amber, because I don't know. See, I don't have a good reason for that one, but I would mate her. And the reason that I want to mate her is because I want to marry Ruth's flower arrangement teacher, because look at the difference she has made in Ruth just by teaching her how to connect with her breathing. And that is so true, though. Like, literally, your nervous system, you can't create. I literally just saw something that I saved. I think I saved it. If I can't find it within 30 seconds, I'll stop looking. But I think I follow this account on Instagram because I've been trying to personally get more back. I have always loved art, but I've been trying to get more back into it. And I saw a post from this person that I like to follow, and I'll shout them out too once I find who it is. Okay, yeah, it's literally the most recent post I saved. So this is on Instagram by Inspired to Write is their handle. And they just post words and shit in their art, whatever. They just came out with a book too, but it says, "It's fucking hard to make art in a fight, flight, or freeze response. If we want to be successful artists, we must regulate our nervous systems. It is fucking hard to create in survival mode." And her book is called "We Need Your Art. Stop Messing Around and Make Something." Amy McNee, MCNE, AMIEMCNEE is her name. So check it out because I do really like her account. I haven't looked too much into her book or anything, but I do like her content. And it was crazy that I am connecting that right now. That I literally just saved that last night.
And it's your first saved post. Yep.
And it was literally exactly what Ruth's flower arrangement teacher taught Ruth. Mm-hmm. That's why I want to marry her. And then I'd kill Brad because he was gross.
I 100% agree with all of those. The only thing that I would say differently is that I would love to mate Amber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have anything against her. She'd be great.
Yeah.
I just don't have any other like good reason. Like,
just don't call me out if I'm not wet enough. All
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Grab me some lube. I mean,
at least she's perceptive.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Maybe she'll bring the lube.
Yeah.
And yes, Brad, goodbye.
He was just gross.
Yeah.
Kind of a gross guy. And
I could like smell him. MVP.
You would also marry her teacher?
I would, yes. I would do absolutely everything you said. And I was just going to marry her because I wanted to kill Brad. Mm-hmm. But I like your reasoning. Mm-hmm. She is very insightful and powerful. Mm-hmm.
That would be good to have someone like that in your corner for your whole life. Mm-hmm. So MVP for this one. Oof. I was just about to say, maybe David for his speech, but then he still spiraled after that. not that that's like something that we need to fault him for, but I don't know if he gets MVP. Maybe Rico for powering through all of these hard emotions with the baby and giving that to his family.
I would say him or Claire.
Oh yeah, and Claire for sticking it out with Gabe, and oh my God, I could cry thinking about how much I love them together. I want better for Claire, but I feel
They're still
their
good.
love so
Yes.
much. I just love it. Let's give it to Claire. I like her the best.
Okay. I would give it to Claire. She just seems so,
She has so much love.
yes, and
Or
patience.
we could give it to the teacher, because that's a good lesson for everyone to remember, is to take care of your body and connect with your body and pay attention
And grab
to your
some
body.
antidepressants.
Yeah. St. John's
I don't know.
wort.
I'm kind of torn. Okay. I would, with that, I think we should give it to the teacher.
She's also a one and done girl, I think. I don't think we see her again. Maybe, but I don't know. We'll call it the teacher. Okay.
Oh, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and comment, follow, subscribe, something. Let us know that you're here. Rate us 5 stars.
Give us a review, because we just got our very first review on Apple Podcasts and it made our freaking day. It's just so
Share
fun.
us with your friends.
And we'll see you next week. 2 more episodes before season 1 is all done. That's crazy. We're having so much fun. Love you. Bye.
Bye.